Hey there, welcome to Conversations with Counselors, a podcast that is about just that, hearing what is on the hearts and minds of biblical counselors who are passionate and dedicated to bringing gospel truths to those who are seeking it. My name is Curtis Heaton, and I am the Executive Director of the Canadian Biblical Counseling Coalition, an organization whose vision is to see every person in Canada have access to local biblical care and counseling. We do that by encouraging and equipping the body of Christ for the work of biblical counseling. That's why this podcast exists, to encourage you and equip you. So let's dive in. In this episode of our podcast, I had the privilege of interviewing Jennifer Holmes, who is our newest CBCC board member. Jennifer Holmes lives in Calgary, Alberta, and is a biblical counselor with a Master of Arts in Counseling degree from Westminster Theological Seminary. She is the director of Hope Care Centre, a ministry that offers resources, seminars, and one-on-one care to churches. She is also a speaker, podcaster, and writer on the topic of mental health and faith, as well as continuing her education in the PhD program at Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary. You can find her latest book, He Is Not Turned Away, on Amazon, and her podcast and other resources on her website, jensnewsong.com. Now let's jump into my conversation with Jennifer. Welcome to our podcast. I just want to welcome Jennifer Holmes, one of our CBCC board members. Thanks for joining us, Jennifer.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So for our listeners, if you haven't had a chance, I would really encourage you to go back and listen to our last episode where I interviewed Betty Ann Van Rees. Betty Ann's one of our longtime board members. She's actually the first kind of board member that got things started with the CBCC. And then now we've got Jennifer here this week, just to kind of a bookend, because you are our newest board member on the CBCC. And I just have so appreciated your contribution already, and just in these past few months, just getting involved, and you've really jumped in with both feet, and it's been great to have you on the board.
Thanks. I'm very excited about it.
Awesome. So now that we get started, I just thought maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself, just share personally, and just a little bit about your life, your family, some of the ministries that you're involved in, just so people can get to know who you are.
Yeah. So I live in Calgary, Alberta. I live here with my husband of 24 years, and
Awesome.
He is a bricklayer out here, or block layer, mostly in Calgary. And we have 3 children. They're mostly all grown. Our son is getting married this summer, and
Cool.
our daughter and
Awesome.
son-in-law live only a few minutes from us. And then our youngest is about to graduate high school. And so we're getting close to the end of our child rearing years. And then, and we go to Hope Hills Church here in Calgary, and we are both on the leadership team here and serve in various capacities at our church. And then I am the director of Hope Care Centre, a biblical counseling ministry here in Calgary.
Okay. Awesome. Now if I remember correctly, you said you moved out to Calgary in the last 5 years or so, or maybe shorter than that?
Yeah, about 4 years now.
Okay. So during COVID. And so before that, I think you were in Ontario, you said?
Yeah. I was actually born in Alberta and lived out here for the first few years of my life, but spent the majority of my life in Ontario. The last place I lived was Barrie, Ontario. And and so our children were getting older and looking at housing prices close to Toronto, and that with some personal things, we decided it was time for a change. And if all our kids were going to move out west, we might as well too. So we love it out here. Awesome.
Yeah, and your kids did well with that transition out west?
Yeah, they really like it out here, and we love the mountains and the lifestyle and all of that.
Yeah, a little bit of a different pace, right? Southern Ontario can be a little crazy at times. Awesome. Well, that's cool. So you guys are, like you said, you're right at that tail end of kind of raising kids and seeing them move on to new things. It's exciting. So your oldest son, you said, is getting married in the summer. Okay. Wow. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. I'm at the other end of the spectrum where my kids are young and we're right in the thick of school. Our youngest is just about to start school in September.
Okay.
So
yeah. So we're on the opposite ends.
That's right. Yeah. So maybe before we jump into talking a bit about some of the ministries that you're involved in, I'd love for our listeners just to hear a bit more about your personal journey towards biblical counseling. Maybe if you just want to start with, how did that start for you? Where did you start to move towards biblical counseling? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, so my journey towards biblical counseling is very personal. I struggled with depression on and off or mostly on, for a lot of my 20s.
Okay.
And I didn't know it. I thought that it was just hormones from having babies. And I had 3 babies, 3 miscarriages, and nursing and all of that in my 20s.
Wow.
And so I thought it was just that. But once I was done all of that, I had to acknowledge, no, I actually am depressed. And so I started writing and speaking about depression because I was in this sort of small denomination that didn't speak much about it. And when women started hearing someone talk about it, they were very excited. And so I wrote a little book and I started speaking. And then I realized that depression wasn't the whole story. And I went to my doctor, sure that this was a hormonal problem again, and said at 35, I think I'm entering early menopause or something, because the only way I know how to describe it, it's like I have bipolar. And I had these highs, times of not sleeping, of grandiose thinking, of accomplishing a million things. And then I would crash after and be very low. And so it turns out that is what I had, not early menopause. And it was, I got diagnosed with bipolar. And it was at that point that I realized I'm writing and speaking about this from purely personal experience. I don't know enough about this to be doing this. And so I looked around for what I could do for education, and I found CCEF. And that was the start of my biblical counseling journey. And it was just so wonderful. It was a place I could go without a bachelor's degree in counseling or something like that.
Right.
And I could just get started. I had gone into counseling for my bipolar with a Christian counselor in town. And he was wonderful and helped me so much. But there were a few points that I disagreed with him on, and I couldn't figure out what it was until I got to biblical counseling at CCF, and I was like, "Oh, this is the fit for me. This is what I need."
Awesome. So, how many years ago would that have been when you kind of got exposed to CCF for the first time?
It's probably 10 now.
Okay. Yeah. That's similar to me too, and just in terms of about the time that I became aware of them, and that was sort of where my journey started with some of the CCF materials. And so did you take some classes there, and then?
Yeah, I took 5 classes with CCF, and then crossed my fingers and hoped I could get into Westminster.
Okay.
And prayed really hard about it. And they accepted me into their master's program, which I will always be grateful for, because I don't have an official bachelor's degree. I was a music teacher before, and so I did all my music education through private lessons. So I was a full-time teacher, but without an actual bachelor's degree. But they took that, my CCF classes, and my ministry experience, which had been quite a few years at that point, and they bundled that all together, called it a bachelor's degree, and let me into the master's program. And it changed my life, because if I had, in the midst of kids and all of that, if I had to go back and start at a bachelor's, I'm not sure that I would have been able to. So.
Okay. Wow, that's really cool. I'm glad that they did that. Yeah, that's...
Yeah, they have a special program for I don't know, it's like 10% of their students they'll allow to do that or something like that. So, yeah,
more
really
based
cool.
on life experience, as you said, and some of the things you've done. Yeah. So 10 years ago, kind of getting a hold of biblical counseling, what impact has biblical counseling had in your life since that time? Yeah,
well, personally, it changed my life, with struggling with mental illness myself. So the first change was in my own heart. My very first CCEF class was David Pallison, and to be able to experience that and just be transformed by his teaching, definitely that's the first impact. But the second was being able to help others. I'm the kind of person that people always talk to. And so I would teach a lot of ladies' Bible studies and speak a lot and things like that. And I would always have people coming up to me and telling me their problems and things like that. So counseling was sort of a natural fit after that. And to have the ability to speak from Scripture, and plus the counseling aspect, has been just so transformative for me in my ministry, to know that I'm giving good, sound advice that is based on Scripture, but also have some of the tools that my education has given me on top of that, has been just really awesome, and has allowed me to feel confident in ministry, because I know that I'm basing everything on God's word.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I love how, like, as I've talked to so many people in this world of biblical counseling, a lot of their journeys are similar in the sense that, you were struggling personally, in your own journey. And then, as you kind of got exposed to this world and realized like God's word speaks, there's a desire to go out and then help others. And in some ways I feel like that's a little bit of my journey of how, I would have people coming to me as well. Same thing. Sometimes, like, in the midst of my own hurt, where it's like, I don't want to pour out right now, but somebody's, tapping on the shoulder and saying, "Hey, can we talk?" And realize I needed to actually get some better training and equip myself. So it's really neat to hear, just your story of how God's used your own journey, and then, equipped you and as you say, giving you that confidence to be able to handle the Word of God more fully in those situations with people.
Yeah.
Who are some of the people maybe in the last 10 years that have been or have had the greatest influence or encouragement to you as you've journeyed towards biblical counseling?
Yeah, I would say that Eliza Huey has been a mentor of mine. I had the opportunity to do a couple rounds of supervision with her, which was amazing. And just reading her books and talking to her, and she came out for a visit to the mountains a year or so ago. And so she's been one. Brad Hambrick has been really influential in just, the man is so prolific. It's that I use his materials all the time. Yeah. And so that's another person. And then just the CCEF staff, even though, I might not know them personally, but having been able to take so many classes from them through Westminster and CCEF really has challenged my thinking. And I think they're just a wealth of information. Yeah. I agree. I've certainly been blessed by them. And it's interesting how, as you say, maybe not knowing them personally, but, having done classes or just consumed a lot of their books, and they're so deeply personal, right? That you almost in a sense feel like you get to know them as people, and they're so down to earth. Maybe talking about, so you've done the master's, and then now you've taken this extra step where you've really kind of developed a passion for academics and taking that education a little bit further. Maybe now's a good time to talk about that. So you've just recently started this journey towards a PhD. Maybe tell us a little bit about that and how that started. Yeah. So, like I mentioned, I didn't go to school right out of high school. I actually went and lived in the Philippines for a couple of years and worked in a children's home there. But so I always wanted to go to school and but I just chose that different path right out of high school and then had kids and all of that. And so when I was getting my master's, I was like, I just love this so much. And so I was like, where can I go from here? And so I am currently enrolled doing my PhD at Southeastern. And during my first seminar, I texted my friends and I'm like, I am exactly where I'm supposed to be. Like, I just love this so much. So yeah, I do have a passion for academics, and I have a passion, like I mentioned before, I was writing and speaking before I even knew what I was doing with that. And so I want to be able to, contribute to the academy that way.
Okay. Very cool. So what were some of the factors in leading you towards Southeastern? So I know Brad Hambrick's involved there and the faculty. So I'm assuming maybe that was a little bit of a draw for you. But any other reasons?
I looked around. First of all, there's not a lot of places you can do a PhD in biblical counseling.
Right.
So it narrows the field a bit. And so I just really was drawn to Southeastern first because of Brad Hambrick. And he doesn't actually supervise in the PhD program, but I met with Kristen Kellen, Dr. Kellen, and she's amazing. And it's been really cool to, as a woman in academia, to have another woman supervisor has been really cool too. Yeah. And just talk with her about that kind of thing. And so I'm really excited to continue there. They have a great program. It's robust and biblical. And even though I'm just at the beginning, I'm enjoying it so much. Okay.
Yeah. So you're just at the beginning. How long is that process then for the PhD? I know it can vary, but
yeah. Minimum of 3 years, maximum of 7 years. So I'm hoping to do it in 4 or 5 is my goal. But so I'm doing the classes full time right now. If I can keep that up, then the classes will be done in 2 years, and then it just depends how fast I can write my dissertation.
Okay. Do you know yet? Do you have a particular area of study that you want to focus on for your dissertation, or are you still figuring that out?
I'm taking the one another's of the Bible and comparing them to neurobiology. And so what happens in the brain when we actually do the one another's, and then seeing how that would relate to helping people heal from trauma.
Okay. Wow. That's awesome. Yeah. And I love that you're a Canadian doing this, because we need some more. I know we've talked about this kind of on the board, but in our circles, just of having some more Canadians do some things like research and writing. So I look forward to seeing how the Lord will use that for you, and hopefully start publishing some books. That would be really cool.
Yeah. I'm hoping so too.
Yeah, I know it's something. Actually, I think it'll be my next interviews with Matt King, and looking forward to hearing a little bit of his story too, because I know he's quite passionate about the whole research aspect, and he's been working on a master's degree. And then we've got Jeeman Moon, of course, at Heritage as well, who's working on his PhD at Southern Baptist Seminary. So yeah, few people were moving in that direction. So it's kind of exciting to see how the landscape will change in Canada as we start putting out some good content. So that's exciting.
Yeah, we definitely need more research from the biblical counseling side, which I'm really excited to. My professor and I are talking about a project right now. It's not approved yet, so I won't say what it is. But but working on some research projects and stuff, so that we're getting some on the ground research from biblical counselors.
Okay, well, that's awesome. Yeah, I think it's a needed area. So that's great. I'm glad. And like you said, there's maybe not a ton of females on this side of things too, in the academics. Like I know it's a predominantly a male-dominated field. So it's great that you're taking this on, and that you got Kristen helping you through it as well.
Yeah.
Hey, listeners, I want to take a few seconds to let you know about our CBCC partnership program. If you are an individual or a church leader who is passionate about biblical counseling, then we invite you to consider becoming a CBCC partner. You will get access to resources, discounts on our annual conference, and be able to attend our partner events. Our first webinar event is happening on June 10th, where we will talk about how to be equipped to biblically care for those who are caught in abusive situations. Check out our partnership page at canadianbcc.ca for more details. Do you, and so I guess once you're done the PhD, so I guess looking out, maybe 4 or 5 years, what goals do you have for yourself? You talked a little bit about writing, and is there anything else that you're sort of passionate about or thinking about as you look out ahead?
Yeah. One of my ministry goals is to help those in leadership to understand how to walk alongside those in their care, and really passionate about having lay counseling and ministers who are more equipped to counsel in their churches. And so I really would love to teach at a seminary one day is my goal. And I love teaching. I was a music teacher for years, like I said, and I miss the aspect of teaching. I loved making my own curriculum, and I loved seeing people's eyes light up when they figure something out, and just being able to help. So I've been doing as much of that as I can in like cohorts and things like that. But I would really love to get in on the ground level in people's training and just help them understand, from my own experience as someone who has been in the church the whole time I've had mental illness. I've had different experiences with that, and most of them not great. And so I would love to help people understand, when someone comes into your office at 14 and says, I'm depressed, or when someone comes in, a young mom comes in and says, I'm depressed, or a 35-year-old comes in and says, I have bipolar, how do you react and what do you do with that? And I would love to teach people.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, we definitely need more of that. I'd love maybe even if you just could talk a little bit more about, because I know you've been doing a lot of this already, even just as you said, helping to equip churches, doing some teaching with leaders and that kind of thing. What are some of the things that you're seeing, and how, to your point where you talked about there, like, okay, somebody comes into your office, as a pastor, a teenager or a young mom comes in the office and says, I'm depressed. How are you helping to equip leaders and pastors at this point? What are some of the things you've been sharing with them? Just to get them better equipped in how to handle some of these situations?
Yeah. So I've had the opportunity to do some cohorts, both with women and with pastors, where we just have an hour and a half every month and just talk about these subjects. And so with the cohorts, they asked me to do, the pastor's cohort, they came to me and asked me about certain subjects, but also with depression, I've been teaching some women's ministry leaders and some pastors. And I had the opportunity at a regional meeting to do a leader's quick guide to depression, I call it. And so I've written a little 5-page emergency handbook kind of thing. And I have a few of those on different topics for pastors and leaders. But I had 22 pastors in the room or something, and just got to go through that guide with them and then answer their questions. And they seemed really thankful for that opportunity, just to be able to sit in a room and ask someone what do I do, and when do I call 911, and when do I take them to a hospital, and what can I walk through, and what needs professional help, and all of these things. And so it was really it just cemented my desire to help more and more.
Yeah, well, that's really cool just to hear how the Lord's already using you in what you're passionate about, and giving you these opportunities to teach and to share these cohorts. So is this something that's kind of part of these cohorts, is it something that comes out of the denomination you're a part of, or is like a local gathering of pastors in the Calgary area?
It's been so far all the denomination that I'm
Okay.
a part of. And so, it's been really cool to have earned some of their trust, and working with the women's ministry leader for across Canada for our denomination on these cohorts for women, and the regional leader for pastors and stuff. So yeah, it's been a really cool opportunity.
Awesome. So maybe now's a good time to talk a little bit about, because I assume you're doing a lot of this out of your ministry called Hope Care Center. So when did you start Hope Care Center, and what kind of is the focus of that ministry?
Yeah, so it's been going for about 2.5 years now. And I asked my pastor about it because I have always wanted to have my biblical counseling to be under the local church. It's just a personal preference of mine. And so I went to him, and he's like, this is awesome. I am 100% behind this. However, we were a church of like 30, 40 people at the time. And so a brand new church, and that had just gone through COVID. And so we were small, but my church is part of a network of churches that started all together. And so we approached the leader of the network, and he's like, we can start this as a network ministry. And so my pastor and the leader of that network are my bosses and overseers. And we started this up, and these 13 churches or so work together and help us be as part of the Aspen network. And it's just been this wonderful experience of being part of a team and being part of a local church emphasis. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. I love that. Yeah, you were able to start kind of from the ground zero, just having that network of support. A lot of times you're trying to go out and do something on your own, and you don't have those people speaking into it and giving you that feedback and direction. So that's awesome. Now, you do some of this teaching stuff. What else do you do with Hope Care Center?
Yeah, so I really have 3 kind of main goals. One is one-on-one care. And so I do, biblical counseling with people. One is resources. So doing things like writing those leaders' quick guides. I do worksheets on the Psalms for different subjects that pastors or leaders can work through with their people. If they're like, I need to sit with this person for an hour, but I'm not sure where to go or what to do. This is a great worksheet you just pull out and just work through, and gives you many opportunities to talk with them. So different things like that. I have written a couple of books and things like that too. So resource creation is really important to me. So for churches, I'll go in and either have a emphasis of equipping their people, or equipping or an outreach to their community. So had the opportunity to do several of those, which is great. And so I really want to do, it's writing, speaking, and counseling, basically. And so that's really my goal of equipping the church.
Awesome. I love that. You talk about the emphasis of equipping the church, because I think that's something that is obviously so needed, and the church should be the place where people are equipped and do walk with each other through life's challenges, right? I'm actually going to be speaking on, or next week actually, at our or the denomination that I'm a part of. I'm going to be doing kind of a crash course on this, I guess, a workshop next week. And I'm really excited about, just kind of laying that groundwork and just helping people in the church understand that, we can walk alongside people. I think there's this, and I don't know, you've experienced this too, but, there's this misconception that, in order to walk with or care for people, you have to be a professional, or have some kind of designation. And there's times when I think that's helpful, but
I think by and large, a lot of the stuff that people are walking through, they just need a really wise and godly friend, right? Who knows the scriptures and can walk with them.
Yeah, and I think that is a lost art in our society today, even.
Mm-hmm.
When I do building a culture of care in your church seminar, I talk about how there's like probably 50% of my clients could be just as helped by a godly mentor as me. And, there are people who come to me with very serious trauma or very serious issues that definitely need extra help. But a lot of them are young moms or young people trying to figure out, what to do with their life, or people with some difficult relationships in their life or things like that. And I think that if we had godly mentorship and discipleship and things like that in the church where people had the confidence to do it, then I think that would leave, my time for the really difficult cases. But yeah, I think it's a lost art in our society, and just being able to walk alongside people. That's why I'm studying the one another's, because I think that would solve so many problems if we truly followed all the one another's.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And it's true. Like it is a bit of a lost art. And I'm curious, I know maybe putting you on the spot here, but I'm curious what you think are some of the reasons for why that's a lost art. Obviously we can point to things like, technology, social media, stuff that's like, in a world where we're so connected in a sense, but really disconnected at a deeper level. Just curious if you have any thoughts, like as you've walked with pastors, walked with churches, what you see maybe are some of the causes that have led us down this path of just not knowing how to really walk with each other.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a disconnect from our neighbors and our friends and stuff is definitely part of the problem. But I also see it as the rise of the importance of counseling, which sounds funny for a counselor to say, but I think it has become overemphasized. And a lot of people who come to me, they're like, I have this problem, I need counseling. I'm like, no, you don't. You need some wise counsel. Those are two different things. And And so I think a lot of things have gotten pushed to counseling as opposed to pushed to relationship. And in my classes, I've been studying how the role, like when you counsel someone formally, the modality does not matter nearly as much as the relationship between the counselor and the counselee. It's the relationship that fosters change, that fosters trust, all of those things. And so it's really important to counselees to have a good relationship. And I think that can be had in a lot of circumstances, that can be had with a spiritual mentor or a leader or even a parent, or an aunt and uncle or somebody. And so I think that we have pushed too much onto counseling and instead of onto relationship.
That's so good. Yeah. Now that you said that, that makes a lot of sense to me, because I think, in this talk that I'm going to be doing next week, I'm going to start out with this little story. And I wouldn't have maybe phrased it exactly the way you have, but I appreciate what you've just said, because I remember it was probably 10, 11 years ago. I had a friend who was in a crisis. So I'm going to start out with this story in my talk, how, I was the first person he reached out to. He called me in the midst of this crisis. And then my knee-jerk response was, after sort of talking with him on the phone, praying with him, I was like, I need to get him to somebody who's better equipped for this, right? And so I went to one of our pastors at the church, and thinking, okay, like he's going to take this on, right? This is a big problem, too big for me. He's going to take this on. And the pastor said something I'll never forget. He looked at me in the eyes and he said, Curtis, I think there's a reason that this guy called you, because he knew you were somebody he could trust. And I think you need to walk with him. And I was stunned. I was like, what do you mean by that? Like, I'm not equipped for this. And he was like, you know what? I know you're growing in your spiritual walk. You're a step ahead of this guy in his life. You're the friend that he needs right now. And I'll be here to support you as you journey with him. But that was a real paradigm shift for me. It was like, yeah, what this guy needed was not just, the professional or the pastor. He needed a good godly friend to walk with him. And I'm thankful that pastor kind of challenged me on that. And I think a lot of people in the church think that way, right? If you're a small group leader or a parent or just a friend in the church, and your friend brings something to you, or somebody in your small group brings something to you, the knee-jerk reaction is, oh boy, like this is out of my depth. Let's find the pastor, let's find the counselor and get you some real help.
Yeah. And I think that I also want to encourage people that even if you do feel out of your depth and you feel like this is a counselor problem, that you don't just take them to a counselor and end there. That they still need someone to walk with them. They still need someone to be in relationship with them. The counselor sees them max 1 hour a week,
Right.
And so they still need someone in their daily lives, in their ability to text and say, I'm feeling this way right now, and I think that is also an element that's missing when we rely too heavily on counseling, when we say, oh, okay, here, you go to the counselor, you deal with that problem there, and therefore this is no longer my problem.
Right.
The people of God in our churches should always be our problem. That's a funny way to phrase it, but they're always in our sphere. They're always in our care, I guess would be a better way to say it.
Right.
And so I really encourage, when I'm teaching culture of care, I really encourage pastors and leaders that your job with them is never done, even if you feel that they need professional help.
It's funny. I just, as you were saying that, I had the story of the Good Samaritan come to my mind. And I don't know if I'm making a good application here, but thinking about, how the Samaritan, if you sort of apply that to the church life, right? Somebody in crisis on the side of the road, bleeding, the Samaritan takes him to an inn, pays for his care, but then says he's going to come back, and make sure that he's still being looked after, and that he'll continue to pay the bill. I think it's a good model for us as we think about the church, right? You might need to take somebody to get, critical care right away, but you continue to follow up and continue to journey and continue to make sure that they have friends around them and family. Like that's, and I think what you're talking about is like the church is a family, and we should deeply care about, like I guess Paul says, when one part of the body suffers, all suffer, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Wow, I'm encouraged. Well, thank you for what you're doing. It's exciting to hear how the Lord is using you in your role, and I'm excited to see what the future holds with your continued training. Just as we close, I wonder if you could just take a few minutes and share some of your thoughts about coming on and joining the CBCC. So I know you started in January, I think, so you've only been a few months into this. What have you enjoyed so far as you stepped into being a board member on the CBCC? We had this 1 day meeting. So your first chance to kind of meet everybody in the room the day before the conference. What have you enjoyed so far?
Yeah, I think for me, the main thing is finding my people. That's been the phrase that has gone through my head. out here in Alberta, there are very few biblical counselors. Biblical counseling in Canada is small as well. And so, having come from, I go to these big CCF conferences or something like that, and then I go back to Alberta and just like, I'm by myself, And so, when I first started meeting all of you guys and going through the process of, you guys seeing if I was a good fit for the board, I just kept thinking like, oh, I think I've found some people, I'm really excited. Canadian people who are excited about biblical counseling. And then when we had our all-day board meeting, there was just this moment where we were all praying over somebody and crying and just feeling for this person. And it was just this beautiful moment of like, this is a family, and I got invited to join it. I got adopted in, and it was so cool to know like I have that support and people who have the same goals, who also want to equip the church and also want to see biblical counseling grow in Canada. And so just some fellow laborers, some of my people, some family. I'm really excited to be a part of it.
Yeah. And I share those sentiments. It's been so cool for me to be a part of this as well over the last couple of years. And, I've had the chance of sitting on, the elders board at my church, and which was a wonderful experience. And was very, unifying, but there's something unique, I think, about this group. I think I can say that, that there's just a collective heart for each other that really comes out when we get together. We have a hard time keeping our meetings short because everyone wants to, everyone's invested in hearing from everybody else, and it's a beautiful thing. So thinking about like a coalition, because I know you're kind of, as I say, you're a bit new on the scene, but why do you think, I think I asked the same question to Betty Ann, but why do you think a coalition is important for biblical counseling in Canada?
Yeah, I think having diversity is just really important. I even in my own education is quite diverse, and
Right.
And so I think that is such a benefit actually, and makes it stronger, and everyone gets a seat at the table. And so having the diversity to go into Canada and say like, we're gonna equip you, we're gonna walk alongside of you. You get to, in some ways, see yourself on this board somewhere, and you will relate to somebody on this board, and knowing that we're here for people, for just people who email us in with questions or things like that, but also other counselors who feel alone and feel lonely, and like they're just ministering, and it's hard, and it's hard to grow biblical counseling here. And so having this sort of resource for people where they can have a seat and know like I find help there, I think has been, it's been important for me before I was on the board to see that in Canada. And so I'm excited to hopefully, represent the West a little bit here, and then have other people be able to say like, oh, there's a resource there. There's someone I can talk to. There's someone who can help. I've already gotten, since people realized I was on the board at the conference, I've already gotten several emails of like, hey, can we talk? And how did you do this? And what are you doing? And what do you do about this? And, so I think that will be really helpful to the biblical counseling movement going forward.
I'm encouraged to hear that. Yeah, that's one of the things that coming into this role as the executive director was just, trying to foster some. And I know it's not to say the board didn't do that before I came on, but just, to make sure that this could be a place that people could find their people and be encouraged and to network. And that's one of the things I love about our conference too, is that, you just see these people gathering together, and I love kind of walking around in the breaks and you see people sitting around tables and chairs and, just connecting. And, because there is something I think about this ministry that we're involved in, walking with people, counseling, dealing with some of the really heavy stuff that can at times feel isolating because, maybe you can't share. So obviously some of the details of people you're walking with, and just to know that there's others out there who also know what it is to carry that weight.
Yeah.
And to be a support and encouragement. It's good to hear. And I'm thankful that you're a part of this now, and looking forward to what God has in store for us as we keep charging ahead. I'm looking forward to this. Maybe it's a little plug here for our webinar that we're doing in June. So Jennifer and Brian, actually our two newest board members, will be kind of leading us in this webinar on abuse and how to help churches and individuals think about how they can respond. Really looking forward to both you and Brian, what you'll have to share with us at that time. So that'll be on June 10th for anybody who's a church partner or individual partner with the CBCC. You get to join us on that. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to us. But I look forward to how you guys are going to lead us well in that, and just hearing how your heart for developing resources. I know we didn't get to touch on that, but we'll talk at the webinar about this abuse prevention and awareness policy that you developed, which is a great document. So we'll get to share that at the webinar. But keep doing what you're doing. I love that you're developing these resources, equipping pastors, passionate about churches. Just so thankful for how the Lord's using you.
Thanks. Yeah, it's been a ride, but I'm loving every second of it.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us on the podcast. And I look forward to the days ahead and having another conversation like this down the road. And for our listeners, Jennifer, also, we didn't get to talk about that much, but you have your own podcast. So if you look her up, I'm sure you can. What's the name of it again, just so that I can remember?
I have two.
Okay.
One is called Head and Heart, and that's interviews with other biblical counselors, mostly authors. And then I have a new one called Psalms to Help You Sleep. And that is for people who are suffering sleeplessness from anxiety or depression or things like that. It's specifically tailored towards that. So it's a really soft, calming podcast to help you fall back asleep.
Awesome. All right. So check those out. We'll put some links in our show notes so you can check those out as well. And thanks again, Jennifer, for joining us.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining us. I want to remind you to go to canadianbcc.ca to find more ways to connect with the Canadian Biblical Counseling Coalition. Be sure to tune in to our next podcast. New episodes will be released on the second Thursday of every month.